Most people spend their entire lives trying to fit in. They copy opinions, follow trends, hide their real thoughts, and slowly become versions of themselves that feel acceptable to everyone else. But some people were never built that way. No matter how hard they try, they always feel different. Different emotionally, different mentally, different socially. Like their mind works on a completely different frequency from everyone around them. And psychology suggests that feeling may not be imaginary. Some people naturally process emotions, behavior, and reality differently than the average person. They notice things others ignore, feel emotions more deeply, question things more often, and struggle fitting into environments designed for surface level thinking. These people are usually misunderstood, not because they're broken, but because they experience life differently from most people around them. So, in this video, we're exploring 8 signs you're psychologically different from most people. And by the end, you may finally understand why you've always felt unlike everyone else. The first sign is that you notice things other people completely miss. Most people move through life on autopilot. They hear words, but rarely pay attention to tone. They see smiles, but ignore the sadness hiding underneath them. But psychologically different people tend to observe everything. Tiny shifts in behavior, changes in energy, forced emotions, hidden tension. You notice when someone suddenly becomes quieter. You notice fake enthusiasm. You notice when someone's words don't match their body language. And the strange part is, you usually notice these things instantly. Not because you're trying to judge people, but because your brain naturally absorbs emotional information deeply. That's why crowded places can feel exhausting. Your mind is constantly processing emotions, facial expressions, energy shifts, and emotional inconsistencies, while most people barely notice anything around them. And over time, this heightened awareness changes how you see people completely. You begin realizing how much human behavior is performance, how many conversations are fake, how many people hide their real emotions constantly. And once you notice these patterns, it becomes impossible to unsee them. The second sign is that small talk feels emotionally draining to you. Most people can comfortably spend hours talking about gossip, trends, meaningless updates, and surface level conversations. But psychologically different people often struggle with this deeply, not because they think they're better than others, but because shallow conversations feel mentally empty. You crave depth naturally. Real thoughts, real emotions, real honesty. You want conversations that make people think. Conversations that reveal something meaningful. But instead, most social interactions feel repetitive, predictable, emotionally disconnected. And over time, you start feeling lonely even around large groups of people because physical presence does not automatically create emotional connection. Sometimes, being surrounded by shallow conversations feels lonelier than being alone. That's why many psychologically different people become quieter with age. Not because they lose personality, but because they stop wasting energy on interactions that feel emotionally empty. The third sign is that you overthink almost everything. And no, not in a dramatic way, in a deep psychological way. Your brain rarely stops analyzing. After conversations end, you replay them repeatedly. The tone, the pauses, the hidden meaning behind certain words. You analyze people's intentions, emotional reactions, and subtle changes in behavior without even trying. Sometimes your mind feels impossible to shut off, and while others move on quickly, your brain continues processing long after the moment ends. This often happens because psychologically aware people naturally seek patterns and meaning. Your brain wants understanding, not surface-level explanations, which is why you question everything deeply. Why people behave certain ways. Why relationships change. Why humans hide emotions. Why society rewards fake behavior. And although this awareness can make you emotionally intelligent, it can also make relaxation extremely difficult because your mind never truly rests. The fourth sign is that you feel emotionally disconnected from most people, not because you hate people and not because you lack emotions. In fact, many psychologically different people feel emotions more intensely than others. The problem is, they struggle finding people who emotionally understand them. Most conversations stay on the surface. Most relationships feel performative. Most people avoid uncomfortable honesty. And eventually, you start feeling like nobody truly understands the way your mind works. This creates emotional isolation. You may laugh around people while secretly feeling disconnected the entire time. You may spend time socially, yet still feel deeply alone afterward. Because emotionally intelligent people often crave connection that feels authentic, not forced, not fake, not based on appearances. Real connection. And when they don't find that, they slowly withdraw emotionally. Not because they stop caring, but because disappointment becomes exhausting. The fifth sign is that you read people extremely well, sometimes too well. You notice insecurity hidden behind confidence, pain hidden behind humor, jealousy hidden behind compliments, manipulation hidden behind kindness. Because psychologically different people often become experts at observing human behavior, not intentionally, but naturally. You notice contradictions quickly. Someone says they support you, but their energy feels competitive. Someone pretends to be confident, but constantly seeks validation from everyone around them. Someone smiles around certain people, but becomes cold the moment they leave. Most people ignore these inconsistencies. You don't. And over time, this makes trust difficult, because once you start seeing through people consistently, you realize how many masks humans wear socially. The fake confidence, the fake friendliness, the fake concern. And eventually, you stop trusting words alone. You trust patterns, behavior, energy, consistency, which is why psychologically aware people often keep their circle extremely small. Not because they dislike people, but because awareness makes fake relationships feel unbearable. The sixth sign is that you need a lot of time alone to recover mentally. Most people assume isolation automatically means sadness, but psychologically different people often experience solitude differently. For you, being alone feels peaceful, not lonely. Silence gives your mind space to breathe. No fake conversations, no emotional pressure, no social performance. Just quiet. And after spending too much time around emotionally draining people, solitude feels necessary, because psychologically aware minds absorb emotional energy deeply. Crowded places become exhausting. Fake energy feels heavy. Emotionally chaotic, people drain you mentally. And eventually, you begin protecting your peace carefully. You become selective about who you spend time with, who gets access to your emotions, and who deserves your energy. Not because you're cold, but because you understand how damaging the wrong environments can become psychologically. The seventh sign is that you've always felt different from other people, even as a child. You may have felt emotionally older than others, more aware, more reflective, and more sensitive to behavior. Like you were observing life differently from everyone around you. Maybe you struggled relating to certain social groups. Maybe you questioned things other people accepted blindly. Maybe you always felt like an outsider watching everyone else fit in naturally. And over time, that feeling became stronger. Psychologically different people often experience life with heightened self-awareness, which means they constantly analyze themselves, other people, society, emotions, and meaning at a much deeper level than average. And while this awareness creates intelligence, it can also create loneliness. Because the more deeply you understand people, the harder superficial relationships become. Sometimes psychologically aware people feel disconnected, not because they're superior, but because they simply think differently. and different minds often struggle finding emotional belonging. The eighth and final sign is that you secretly feel emotionally exhausted by the world. Modern life rewards constant stimulation, constant attention, constant performance. But psychologically, different people often feel overwhelmed by all of it. The fake personalities online, the emotional dishonesty, the endless pressure to impress others, the shallow validation culture. Over time, you begin craving something simpler, something more real. You stop caring about meaningless attention. You stop chasing approval constantly. You stop forcing yourself to fit into environments that drain your mental health. And instead, you begin protecting your inner peace more seriously. Because psychologically aware people eventually realize something important. Peace is rare. Realness is rare. Authenticity is rare. And protecting your mental energy becomes more valuable than fitting in socially. That's why many psychologically different people slowly become quieter over time. Not weaker, not emotionally broken, just more aware. Aware of how exhausting fake environments can become. Aware of how much emotional energy people waste pretending. Aware of how difficult genuine connection actually is. And maybe that's why you've always felt different. Not because there's something wrong with you, but because your mind processes life more deeply than most people around you. You notice more, feel more, think more, question more. And while that awareness can become emotionally heavy sometimes, it also gives you something rare, the ability to see beyond appearances, beyond fake confidence, beyond surface level behavior, beyond the masks people wear every day. So if these signs connected with you deeply, maybe you were never meant to think like everyone else. Maybe your mind was always different. And maybe that difference is exactly what makes you who you are. If this video made you understand yourself a little better, don't forget to subscribe. There are many more hidden psychology stories waiting for you on this channel.